Hey Moira, this is your brother. You and the Greek mob and the corrupt members of the Newton PD who have this little racket going uh, with ruining people's lives to steal money somehow. In my case, it was an inheritance. You got a problem. Because you see, I was wrongfully charged with assault and battery over the age of 60. Back sometime around 2017, it was. Court records will show. And I was threatened by you and mom for 2 years prior to that with death. And I was also threatened with death in a veiled manner, by a Newton police officer, Newton police sergeant, female Newton police sergeant, when I was dragged off to St. Elizabeth's Medical Center, the inpatient psychiatric unit. That's a locked psychiatric unit. They wouldn't let me out until I shut up about certain things. And so I agreed to pretrial probation and dismissal of the charges in exchange for doing mental health treatment I did not need. Now, the reason you, the Newton PD, and the Greek mob have a problem with respect to that is Jeffrey N. Berman. Jeffrey N. Berman pled to being the so-called Green Line groper. A man who, there were reports to the transit police that a man was groping young women on the Green Line. Now, this man was described as being around 5'8", having white hair, and having a thin build. The last alleged victim of the Green Line groper got a picture of this man, allegedly, and it was Jeffrey N. Berman. And he turned himself in and tried to make things right, and then he pled guilty. And then he was a lawyer who was in real estate, I believe, or at least he was working in real estate after he had his law license revoked. And then he was working in real estate after he had his law license revoked. And then, according to an article in the Herald, they ran him out of that. Now, here's the problem. Dionysios Tembalopoulos, the Greek mobster, who was interested in the contents of Dad's will and who was interested in whether or not Dad was going to live or die back when he had a cardiac event, a near myocardial infarction back in 2013. He was in a panic over it. That Dionysios Tembalopoulos, who didn't send me a condolence card and wasn't concerned when Dad died eventually in 2024, that guy, who was obviously only interested in the contents of Dad's will and whether or not Dad was going to live, because he wanted the money in Dad's will. He fits the description of the Green Line groper. That's right. He's about 5'8" or less. He's sort of sawed off a little bit, that guy. And he could pass for Jeffrey N. Berman if you didn't look too closely. They even wear the same dark-colored glasses, prescription glasses, Moira. And here's the cherry on top. Dionysios Tembalopoulos now lives right next door to where Jeffrey N. Berman used to live. If I've got the right Jeffrey N. Berman from the Newton, Massachusetts real estate records. That's right. Dionysios Tembalopoulos also fits the description of the Green Line groper, Jeffrey N. Berman, who allegedly it was Jeffrey N. Berman. They both wear the same kind of dark-colored prescription glasses. And now, after Jeffrey N. Berman got run out of town, or at least out of his house, Dionysios Tembalopoulos lives right next door to where Jeffrey N. Berman used to live at 162 Honeywell Avenue in Newton. Now, what can we infer from this? The Greek mob coerces people, along with accomplices, into pleading guilty to things that they did not do, or to agreeing to what I agreed to, which was pretrial probation in return for dismissal They get people to agree to things in court by means of threats. And I was threatened with death by you and Mom. You made up some big fancy story about the CIA and how I was going to get executed for treason and or the CIA would just kill me. And that if I tried to go public, the CIA would just kill me because it was classified what was going on. There was nothing I could do about it. I couldn't go to the police. I couldn't hire a lawyer. And then I was coerced by my lawyer, Arthur Kelly. Arthur Kelly told me if there was ever another incident like this, or I shoved myself in self-defense, that I would end up in Billerica. And he made this threat with Mom in the room. That's right. My defense attorney threatened me on behalf of the people who were extorting me. Arthur Kelly's going to have a little issue with the bar. Because you're not supposed to have a third party in the room when you're doing a plea conference, which that was. Especially when the third party in the plea conference is extorting your client. That makes the defense attorney an accomplice to extortion, not a defense attorney. That's just slightly unethical. That's something you can get disbarred for. So anyways, Moira, you, the Greek mob, and this cast of characters that you employ to extort people out of millions of dollars, you got a little problem. You've done this too many times. You've done this little shtick too many times, and there's now a pattern. What you did to me fits the pattern of what was done probably to Jeffrey Ann Berman. I'm not certain of it yet, but it definitely fits the pattern. And these people are definitely Greek mobsters. And you definitely have cut off all contact with me, Moira. You definitely have cut off all contact with me. Which under the circumstances is bizarre. You're the manager of Dad's estate. I'm one of his heirs, and you and Mom have barely talked to me since Dad died. Except to, call the police on me instead of showing me Dad's will. You have barely communicated with me at all since Dad died, and he had $15 to $20 million. This is bizarre behavior. And the only thing that explains this behavior is you and Mom committed some form of homicide against Dad, and you've absconded with all the money in his estate. You're in serious trouble with the law, Moira, and so is the Greek mob. And for your sake, and for the sake of the Greek mob, I sincerely hope Jeffrey Ann Berman is still alive.